Hey guys, welcome back to the Yes Dear podcast. I am Dana Lyons and I'm here with my co-host Patrick Lyons, and we are here to give hope to struggling marriages. And if you have been married for any period of time, you probably have had your number of obstacles, challenges, struggles, and maybe moments of feeling like you're feeling hopeless in a certain area of your life. And so that's all we want to do is share certain things that have helped us along the way. And so today we actually had somebody ask if we would be open to doing they gave us a request of, hey, would you talk about parenting adult children? And so we thought we would go, we decided, why not? Well, let's just shoot from the hip. We have no idea where it's going to go. We don't claim to be experts here, but we do have 5 kids, 4 of which are adults, and our last and final, who's 16, is getting closer and closer to being an adult. So we've been
Yeah,
through a few.
I'm glad because when I heard this is what we're talking about, I thought you were talking about parenting me. Uh,
Well, yeah, but sometimes you're 12. It's not like you're close to adult,
that's more like parenting a
a
child,
middle schooler,
a child, a man child,
tweener.
a tweener. Hmm,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
I wish I
right. I
could.
always tell you, you're like 12
I wish I could
on a
argue.
good day. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can't. But then we also joked with my mom, and you said that she really is our most
I, she's our
she's
our
our oldest child.
biggest challenge. Yeah, for those who don't know, my mother-in-law lives with me and helped me. No, she's awesome. But yes, I did. When I told her we got this request, shout out to Mike in Iowa for listening and for suggesting that we cover this topic today. But when I told you guys that we had gotten this request, I said, so we really should talk about what it's like to parent your mom because she comes and goes as she pleases.
Yeah,
She
breaks
sleeps all
curfew every
day.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
rolls her eyes.
she's very disrespectful to me, I
Uh-huh.
think.
hmm
Um, yeah,
Yeah, but
no,
we do have a handful of kids, and they're all incredibly different. So what worked for one definitely didn't work with the next, and what worked for that one was totally different than the one after, and what works for that one is totally different for the next one. And so
I think
I think,
important to mention too that the age range for the
yeah,
kids is from 33 at the moment, the time of recording. There's what, a 17-year age gap from
yeah,
oldest to youngest,
yeah,
which means, right, at any one time, I mean, would you say the rules were different for each of them, or some rules were consistent and the same? But we didn't always treat that. This is actually a belief I have. You don't have to treat all your kids the same, but you do have to treat them all fairly, right? Because some kids earn more leeway, earn more, I would say privileges, but and some need a little bit more structure and need a little bit more
mm.
guidance, and so. But I don't know if you cringed. You looked like you were thinking when I
Yeah,
said,
I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like, but I think it's just the way it's probably just the wording, because obviously yeah, I don't necessarily, I think the way I communicate with each one is a little different. I think across the board, we have certain things across the board, it's the same. But then there are other ways in which to reach that child, to communicate, to enjoy the relationship, from at least from me to them, that may vary a little bit. But I don't necessarily know. I don't know.
hmm, "No,
Yeah.
you could be wrong. It's okay."
Oh, well, I'm okay being admitting I'm wrong.
I think that was your opportunity to say yes, dear. But
No, 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 no. Um, no, I think, okay, so when you have your first one, I think you're so new, um, that you're trying to not do things. Prior to kids, we all do this. We're like, oh, I'll never do that with my kids. Ah, that rule's stupid. And then you have kids, and the way you view life is in so many ways different. The roles you swore you would never do, you now understand a little clearer. And I think that when it came to the first, you have all these expectations, you have those things that you know, put in your, that you swore you would never do. You have those things. You have those areas that you want to improve, that you want to be a better parent in, that you don't quite know how, and you're willing to try. You know, like you have all these things with the first one, and you have this life before you, and you just don't want to mess it up. And you don't have to be a parent very long to know it messes up all the time. And then you go through all the phases, you know, of that child, but then more get added, and you learn along the way, you know? You're not
Ah,
as, yeah, go ahead.
as you were talking, I was thinking back to the earliest days, and like you said, we all, every one of us grows up with some set of rules, or in some cases, maybe in some cases, even the absence of rules.
Yeah.
And we form our own opinions or beliefs about how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And you come in with that. And it's, I think, what do you do when you are at odds on those rules or those? And we're not talking about like the foundational stuff. Sometimes we're talking about the simple stuff, the, like, the day-to-day stuff.
Mhm.
And this comes out a lot in the marriage work that we do with other
Yeah.
couples, where there are disagreements about, like, when do you play the parent card? I'm the parent, you're the child, because you always have that card. Um, when when do you give them more rope to hang themselves? When do you prevent them from hanging themselves? Right?
Oh, that's graphic.
Well, you know what I mean. Make mistakes. But so here, as you were talking, here's what came to mind for me. When I grew up, the rule in the house was you finish everything on your plate before you leave the table.
Mm.
Right?
Hmm.
That was the rule, and of course, that was going to be my rule for my kids. You finish everything on your plate, and what I thought it was teaching me, and therefore teaching them, was, right, A, we don't waste food, so there's appreciation for what we have. B, you learn to think in moderation as you're building your plate, right? Don't heap stuff on there because you're going to have to finish it. um, and this was my rule, and it created a lot of conflict for us in the beginning because you grew up very
Yes,
differently. In fact,
for
you
sure.
and you grew up with an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And so the notion that my kids, that I'm going to make your kids, they're our kids, but when I'm going to make your kids f- eat when they're full, that created, not only they resented me. Again, I dug in because this is
Yeah.
how it should be. And it created resentment between me and them, and it created resentment between you and me because I was looking at it from one way and you were seeing it very differently. And so I think part of effective parenting for for any couple is being willing. We've talked about this in prior conversations, but just being willing to challenge my own beliefs, not
Sure.
force my beliefs upon you, but really for me to look at that differently and go, yeah, you know what? There were plenty of times where I overate as a child
Mm.
because of this rule. And my parents,
Yeah.
they were just doing what they thought was right.
Yeah.
But um,
And at the end of the day, we both wanted the same thing. We wanted to raise kids who were appreciative, who weren't wasting. It's not like we disagreed. It's the way in which we did it and saw it was different. Yet
right.
when it comes down to like the core stuff, we actually both wanted the same thing.
Yeah. I think that's a great example of how we say, you can get wrapped up in the differences. You can focus completely on the differences, and that will be a source of conflict in your marriage. Or you can do the work to get to the why behind what each of you wants, and then look for the commonality. Find where you are on the same page.
Mhm.
Again, like, okay, help me understand why you do that. Help me understand why you see it that way, why you would like it that way, and search for the commonality. Because to your point, once we found the commonality, right, we were no longer on opposite sides of this argument. We were on the same side. And then the question becomes, how can we do that for our kids in a way that is good for them and, and good for us?
Right. Yeah, where it's healthy boundaries, that we think are that those are healthy, and then trying to train them up. And obviously, you don't always learn it in the moment as that's happening. I think this has taken more children and many years to learn some of these lessons, right? We didn't learn it with our first.
Right.
And for some of them, even with our second. But by the time we got to our third and fourth, I think you get into, well, there is truth to, as you get older, a lot of times the younger ones say about the older ones, or the older ones say about the younger ones, like, you're just so much easier.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
like,
You have it
well,
so much. I'm pretty sure I broke our first two or three kids. I feel like I should be paying for their therapy, but I definitely got better. At least I think.
but here's what you were also, what I would say, baby of the family. So it wasn't like you looked after younger siblings.
Right.
You also were trying your best to raise them the best you knew how at the time. There were lots of moments that I knew. So we're a blended family, and the two older ones, are from my previous marriage. And so, but in your eyes, like, these are just all my kids. These
Yep.
are, you just have this beautiful way of saying, like, they're all mine. They came a different way. And so you were immediately met not with an infant, but kids who were, younger kids. And so you had to learn, what is it like to be a parent? What's it like to be married, and not only to be married, but to marry, all these different things, and to try to parent. And we parent the way we were parented until we actually go, okay, I'm gonna do this a little different.
Mhm.
And so it's taken us years, but I think we still want the same things. We've just learned to do them different, and hopefully a little better. So
Yeah.
to the older, it always looks like the younger gets away with more. I think we've learned different ways in which to reach each child. So, yeah, and then kids grow. When they're younger, it's a little bit more challenging on the daily of having them, they're relying on, we have to feed them, we've got to change them, we have to bathe them, we have to put them to bed, and it's like that daily routine. And so for a couple, those daily ways in which the daily routine happens, a lot of that usually falls to mom if the dad's goes out to work every day. And trying to come up with the daily disciplines is one thing. We can argue all day long. Why I like it my way? Why I like it my way? My way's better. Your way's better. And ultimate, I think we always have to come back to, what are we trying to accomplish here? They need to eat and, learn their own. We have to teach them the daily disciplines on how to feed themselves and get dressed, and then potty training, and, going to school and all those things. But then as they get older, um, that changes. We don't have to do that. Thank goodness we're not changing their diapers now. Thank God we're not having to change them in the morning. They just have more and more responsibilities. So, and with those responsibilities comes, they have more freedom, and more freedom means they have more responsibility, until they're finally out on their own. So before we get to the older ones, though, we had middle ones who we can say they went off to college. Two of our middles, number 3 and number 4, they go off to college. And now we have, like most homes, they come back from college and they're now living back home.
Mhm.
They've had some freedom to live on their own. And then they come back. And in one way, as a parent, I saw COVID as such a blessing, because we have 5 kids, 33 down to 16 now. But COVID, you're going back 3 years. So one was in middle school. Our youngest was in middle school. And her two siblings ahead of her, 2 move into different states, and 2 move to, off to college. So when COVID hit and those two out of the 4 moved back home, it was awesome because she got her siblings back, her siblings back. So that was great because I just think there's nothing like sibling time and love. So I think that's great. But we just have kids who now moved back home. Okay, well, they're not coming back the same way they left. They have life
Right.
experiences. They're building some of their own ideas and values and experiencing life. And life is humbled, like all of us. Life humbles everybody once you move out of the protection of mom and dad, right? So you have these adults that move back. It's a different experience when they come back. For us, for everybody who's, wow, look at that. You see all those fireworks going off on my
I
screen?
I do.
Zoom loves me. Um, they come back different, and it's different for us to experience them, but it's also different for them to come home and experience us because they left one way and they're coming home slightly different. Wouldn't you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah, that's so when we were just brainstorming before we hit record on how we might want to talk about this, I was thinking about um you and I both grew up around a lot of family, right? Now you did leave
Yeah.
home
After
at
high
one point.
school.
Yeah, you left home, but then you came back. I was I grew up around a lot of family for 3+ decades into my early 30s, and in that time you and I got married. In fact, we were like 7 years into our marriage before we finally left where we grew up
Yeah.
and moved halfway across the country
Hmm.
for a job opportunity. So we packed up. At the time we moved, four of our kids, right, you and me and four of the kids, moved completely away from family, didn't know anyone at all. I'm drawing a parallel between what happens when our kids go out into the world, whether it's they go off to college and then they come back, or even if they just go off and move out on their own, and then we're still we're still in relationship with them in whatever way that looks like after they physically leave the home. Um, so for us, that was us. We left, and I can speak for myself with certainty, and I believe you have said the same thing, that we grew. Let me say, I grew more in that first year of being away from my family than I had in probably years and years before that. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that I wasn't growing, but I grew very differently. Um, when you grow up, I mean, when you're born into a family, and I guess we're all born into families, when you're born into a large family, and or I guess any size family, when someone is born into the family, and then as they grow, right, they develop personality, and we everybody has, in every family, everybody
Yep.
has roles to play. We all have a box that we put each other in. Like
Mhm.
you're the peacemaker, you're the troublemaker, you're the class clown, you're the drinker, you're the partier, you're the studier, the studious one, right? We have these roles that
Mhm.
we take on. And when we get
Not knowing
together,
it though. I
no,
mean,
no,
you
no,
don't
yeah,
know this. It's not
yeah,
like we label each other and you're like, okay, this is my role now. It's just we
no,
pick these up along the way.
no, but the one thing, there are many pros to growing up in and around family all the time.
Hmm.
Um, and I experienced all of that. But then we moved away, and I had this completely different opportunity, new opportunity, to actually not play any roles, or to play different roles. And I found myself, I mean, I did. Over time, you start asking, wait, why do I like that?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't like that, right? And I just, because I didn't have people around me all the time telling me what I liked, what I didn't like. I wasn't afraid to try things because people were there going, wait a minute, that's not you. You don't do that. So, and because we had no family there, we just had to figure everything out. We had to figure
Yeah.
everything out. So we grew so much.
For
Again,
sure.
I'll make this a mirror rather than speak for you. I grew so much that then when I went back into that family environment, even, we never moved back home.
Right.
In fact, we've continued to migrate in the
Further and
opposite
further.
direction, further
Yeah.
and further west,
Yeah.
from having grown up on the East Coast. But whenever I have gotten back into that, I feel like the fish out of water. I feel like the different one. Um, and it's because, again, they have grown for sure, but um, I've changed a lot from what they knew me. And it isn't long when I get back into those circles that I can start to see how they still see me as I was instead of how I am, because they just, not because they refuse to, but they don't know what's happened. They don't know
Well,
how
that's how
much.
they used to relate to you. Yeah.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. So
Hmm.
the same thing happens when our kids go off. They experience things. They get to, like, they try things. They do things that maybe they wouldn't have done here, good and bad, that they wouldn't have done in our house, because they can do it with freedom, and they get exposed to more and more
Yeah.
opportunities and more people around them that encourage them differently than we did. And so that when they come back, again, whether it's back home from college or back home to live, or like permanently, or even back from, we have a daughter and son-in-law in Tennessee. And when they
Yeah.
come back here, I'm sure they feel that. My prayer is always, I want them to go out and grow and become who they want to be.
Hmm.
And then my prayer is that when they come back, I don't put them right back into the box. Like they walk in and think, "Oh, I know exactly who you are."
Hmm.
Um,
For
so,
sure.
so part of it, as I think parenting adult children, is um, me changing,
Hmm.
me, right, rather than expecting them to, I don't know,
Fit in around us.
yeah, to,
I really think it's fitting in around them because
yeah,
much like a marriage where we always have to be open and allowing each other to grow, I think we have
yeah,
to do that with our kids.
yeah.
Is meeting them. I mean, they're adults now. And I think it's pretty cool. I think I'm super lucky because and I know you agree with me on this. My kids are some of my favorite top 5 on the planet of people outside of me and you, because I just find them pretty darn cool humans. I'd love to hang with
All of
them.
them.
All of them.
All
Yes.
wait, wait, let
And
all.
I like, and I really like, I even enjoy their significant others. And so
All of them?
shut up. I just, and their children, they're really cool. But I think that,
All of them?
yes.
Okay.
Um, so but I do think, and you have said that right from when we moved to Texas, we both had that, I moved back home twice. Um, but when we moved to Texas and we grew differently than we've ever before, we want this for our kids. It is really good to fly away from home to kind of I mean, you learn about yourself that you don't know when you're in that environment. Why? Because every family has a culture, good or bad. Either way, it's just there's a culture. Our parents mean well, and I could speak for you. It's not like moving away from our family. Did we say our family are terrible, that we don't love them, that we don't
No.
enjoy spending time with them? But when we moved away, it just created an opportunity. We were in a new environment with a different culture, and we were able to grow in areas we hadn't grown before and experience different things in life. And so when our kids come back, I know I can share this, and my daughter would be okay with this. She lives in Tennessee. She's 33 and she loves the South. She loves everything about it. We live in the Pacific Northwest, totally different culture.
Mhm.
But she will say things of different things that she likes to do now. And I go, wow, who would have known you were going to be the mom who X, Y, and Z of what we say that she's doing now? And then I go, that's pretty darn cool. Because who would have known you would want to learn this or try that? And it's so cool. But if we put them into the box of what they were like as teenagers, that wouldn't have been her. It just wouldn't have. And how cool that she's flying and she could do these things. And it's a beautiful thing. I always tell parents when they're teenagers, because I have a lot of, obviously, when you have kids, you talk to other parents with the kids that they hang with, and you hear a lot of the horror stories. And it always breaks my heart when I hear parents just complain about their kids, like, oh, I just can't wait for them to get out of the house.
Mm.
Oh, I can't wait for them to start driving. Oh, I can't wait to, like, just whatever, get out of my face. I need a break. All these things. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, the car is the best one-on-one time. S- They're going to be out long and you're going to wish they were still back. But I always tell parents this: don't focus on where they are as teenagers, because they're going to change. They do come around. They become their own person. It's pretty darn cool. If you could just, there is this song, and I forget who wrote it, but literally it's just all about, really, you've been created to fly, now go fly. And to be
Mhm.
able to release your kids to go, I'm entrusting you with all the freedom you now have, and to watch them come into this place, some pretty cool adults, knowing they're going to be all right.
You cry every time that song comes on.
Oh man, it messes me up because it really is my heart for my kids. Because here's the thing: as parents, this is what I think. This is my own belief system. I think that my role as a parent is to help my kids. It's probably gonna make me cry just talking about it. My gift and my privilege as a parent is, there is this child. We can all change a diaper and feed a child and help them brush them teeth, all those things. But to watch their personalities come out and the honor of helping them find their sweet spot, what they've been created to do, to me, and just watching them figure it out and creating the space, like we've done this with all of them. What do you want to do? And how can we support that? And helping them find that place is some of the sweetest. They're all so different. And to watch and create support, and the best way to support them in that, they all needed something different in figuring that out. Not all went to college, not all have the same, it's not like they followed us in a lot of things we did or anything. They all have their own personalities, gifts, talents, all of that, likes, dislikes, all of those things, to help them do that. And then to release them to fly. It's the ultimate trust as you let go, knowing they're going to be all right. You know, I just, and then as a parent, I think the sweetest, or not sweetest, my responsibility when they come in these doors, whether they're still here and they live every day, or they only come to visit because they don't live here anymore, is to make this a place where they feel like they could just be them, and it's a place of peace. I don't have all the answers on a lot of other things, but when they come home, there's enough happening in the world. There's enough happening coming at them every single day, whether they're adults or children. There's so much coming at each one of us, to create this a place to unpack some of those bags, to be who they are created to be, to learn in the process, frustrations, angers, fears, victories, and know this is a safe place to do it. And when they come home, this is just peaceful. That's
Yeah.
what I feel like my role. They're good. I mean, my kids have done some things I've never done before. My kids have, you know, they're going to hopefully fly higher and further than we ever have. And so, but helping them figure that out, I feel like it's the sweetest role. So when they come home and they act different, it's like you get to reconnect and refigure each other out. And that's kind of fun.
And I almost feel like I want to say, right, for somebody who's listening and gosh, there's so much advice out there. There's so much advice out there. I wouldn't even necessarily say, I think, not I think, I know you would agree, Dana. The last thing we want is for people to hear what we're saying and then implement anything just because we said so, right? I
Oh, for
mean, at the
sure.
end of the day, it has to work for them. The one thing
Mhm.
I will say, um, there's a giant list of things that we've had our struggles. Gosh, we've been open about how we both sucked at being married for the first 6 7 years. Like it's a miracle we're still here today. But even and the blended family thing was not like, that was not how I drew it up. I
Mhm.
didn't say, gosh, you know what I really want? I really want a woman who's already got kids. Like that's what I want. It just, but the way I view it is I couldn't have made those two kids. And I couldn't imagine my life without those two kids. And so they're mine as much as any of them. Like that's I would I it could only have happened that way. But the when I well, I didn't draw it up that way. What I the advantage that I got when we were dating is I actually got to see you be a mom. So instead of dating and thinking, I bet she'll make a great mom, or I bet she'll be really good with kids, I literally got to see it. I got to
Mm.
see it, and it was incredibly sexy. It was beautiful. I mean, just watching, I learned so much from you. As much as I was just the worst in the beginning, as a husband and as a dad, um, you saved me a lot and you gave me a lot of grace as I was figuring it out. Um, the reason I say that is like fast forward now, again, it's 30 years later, no, 27 years later. And the again, we haven't done everything right. And our kids, we have certainly had
Yeah.
lots of chaos, right? Every one of our kids, um, they've been kids, right? They've gotten in trouble, they've excelled, they've stumbled and fallen, they've rebelled. We've had
Yeah.
periods with all of them, but if you're listening to anything that Dana said and trying to figure out, is like, or if dismissing it, the one thing I will say is that every one of our kids, all five of them, and not just our five kids, but their friends and their significant others all call you for advice. They all call you for advice at all ages. Um, so when you speak about creating a place where they can just be, where you speak about meeting them where they are, where you speak about encouraging them to go fly and then coming back and trying to see that, like I can tell you the payoff is it's extraordinary. It is extraordinary. I actually believe it's one of the biggest reasons why there's so much peace and laughter and joy in our house, because we don't have a lot of chaos in our house today. I mean, again, we've had chaos, but even through the chaos, we've still had a lot of laughter because we've always been very tight knit and very close. And that's because every one of our kids really values you and the relationship that they have with you. So, like, rewind this episode, parents, and like listen to, and I don't say this a lot, but everything you said is gold, and I can see the payoff. And it's not just because they're our kids. Like, again, it's their spouses call you for help. They're, and not, yeah, I mean, encouragement, advice. I think because a lot of them, and their girlfriends and boyfriends, they don't get that. I don't know.
Well,
Let me say it this way: what they find in what they get from you is really special. It's pretty awesome. How's that?
well, okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just, I look at, I think, again, I think as parents, you have this child you're responsible for, right? Until you hand them off in marriage, we are to care for this human being. And, we've had our share of arguments with rules with our kids. And gosh, how do you balance appropriate ones? And what's too strict, what's not strict enough, and one can rebel, the other one doesn't even push her buttons on certain one, like, they've all done it in a variety of, in all of them,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, it's to me, find parenting the sweetest honor. Like, God is going to entrust me with these five. I've been blessed to have five children, to be able to raise these kids who become adults. God, I can't even talk about it without, it's my sweetest honor. How, and they all come from the same mom, and they all yet are very similar in some ways and yet also different.
Mhm.
But if you choose as a parent to see, if you just focus on certain behaviors only, and you want your kids to abide by these rules and look a certain way and act a certain way and go down a road that maybe you have for them. Let's just say maybe you've got a line of police officers, right? And it's just like, I've got to do this because this is what we've always done, or medical or attorneys, or, there's this deep pressure. But like, to be able to look into somebody's eyes and get to know this human being and go, what were you made for? Like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And to watch them come into their own when they're just created an opportunity to be, and then to support them along the way, I think is really, really cool. And I encourage parents to do that. Don't get wrapped up in your own life of what you think your child should be and get so rigid on those things. Give your kids room to breathe, to be curious in life, to the point of like, what was I created to do? Where do they get lost in things? And meet them where they're at. And
Yeah.
and if you have married children, I encourage you, like, I truly enjoyed moments where I get to know who my kids are, their significant others. I really got to know parts of my son-in-law I wouldn't have known if I didn't pursue him somehow. And the girls that our boys are probably, hopefully someday going to marry. Awesome human beings, but it comes when I believe, if God pursues us 24/7, perfect parent, pursues us all day long, whether we rebel, stubborn, the good child, and anything in between. God's always pursuing us. And so if we're created in him and we are to be like him, then I believe the parent should be the one pursuing. I don't believe this. Well, I'm the mom and dad, so I can't stand that card. Don't do that. I believe a parent should be able to, who would be willing to jump through, just walk through fire.
Mm.
Appropriate boundaries. I mean, there has to be some boundaries, and I'm not talking all situations. Maybe you have a child who's really unhealthy and some kind of addiction and they take an advantage, and I understand that there has to be good boundaries done in love and all of that. But I just mean in the common household, common everyday life, pursue your child's heart. Don't get wrapped up in the behavior, because it comes down to a heart issue. Pursue them at all costs, because that's what it's all about. It's intimacy, right? We talk about marriage and intimacy with our kids. It's intimacy. Stay close to them. I've told my kids, look, you're going to mess up. We're not going to agree. We all don't believe the same. We all don't vote the same. We all don't see the same. All created different, all the same family. Between you and me, this relationship right here, this never changes. Like,
Right.
meaning our love for each other, that's not negotiable. I'll love you no matter what. And so now how do I meet you where you're at? And hopefully someday, whether they do it when they're earlier or they don't figure it out till they're older and they have kids, they actually want to pursue us back and go like, who are you? And what do you love to do, mom? And what's your life about, where you've been? And tell me about your childhood and all, that I love doing that.
I know.
I just think that's relationship. So,
Yeah. And let's bring it back to the marriage. It really is the same concepts that make for a great marriage, that make for intimacy in the marriage, is pursuing each other's hearts. It's right, it's not getting wrapped up in my rules and you're not meeting my expectations. It's pursuing your heart. It's creating space for you to grow and change, not putting you in a box
mm-hmm.
that, hey, you're not, you hear that a lot. You're not the man I married. You're not the woman I married.
Yeah.
Um, but actually, I was I was trying to make a joke there, and I thought, no, I'll just stick to the script. Like, wait a minute, you're not the woman I married. No, I actually married a different woman. Um, no, but it's like the cruelest irony that you raise your kids to leave. Um, and the goal, to your point, it's not to make mini me.
No.
It's not to it's to love them, pursue their hearts, and be there, gosh, every one of them, when they have screwed up, and they have screwed up a lot, especially the oldest. Um, I
She's listening, you know
I know,
that.
that's why I said that.
I know.
Every one of them, when they have screwed up, they
Mm.
call you, as opposed to they hide. And I just think that speaks to, or like they just know it's a place of it's a judgment free place. Like, hey, okay,
Gosh, I
awesome.
hope so.
Um, so how do you
And
create that for the
but
kids?
I
How do you?
think less, I think life's a classroom. I really look at it that way. Some of the lessons they've been through, they'll never forget, as opposed to listen to our stupid lecture and it goes in one ear and out the other, right? It didn't work for me, it's not gonna work for them.
Right.
But I have to give credit before I have to say that my mom did that for me. There were a lot of things my mom would admit, I didn't do right. No parent does. But I have to say I learned a lot of my parenting style from her, that all my friends came to my mom, even like my best friend growing up. She's gonna be listening. She called me to talk to my mom. Miss Chance, can you come pick me up? I'm in trouble. And like, don't tell my parents. She's like, oh no, come on, but she just made it safe for kids to be themselves, didn't judge, but was and always drew a line when it was needed. She did that well, and I think she pursued our hearts. And all my nieces, all her nieces and nephews, everybody in our family would say, "I know she loves me because she pursues me. She does well. I mean, she travels the
Yeah.
world to go visit everybody, you know." So, but
Yep.
so that's it. Pursue their hearts.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
What I would say is if you're, if you hear that, because I feel like we could do a whole episode on what does it mean to pursue someone's heart.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe we can, maybe we do sometime, but let's look at how long our episode is running.
Mhm.
Um, that's maybe if you're, yeah, I don't know. Dan, if somebody wants to learn more about, how can I get better at pursuing my child's heart, or how can I get better at pursuing my spouse's heart? What would you?
Well, well, here's what I would say. Um, I think I've said it on some of our episodes about putting your student cap on. You don't know everything. You never will. So lay your pride down. This child, especially if let's just go middle school on through, especially if they go off to college and they've left before and they come back, they're learning and outside of your home a whole lot more with every year that goes on.
Mhm.
Don't assume you just know this child. And don't assume, just don't peg them. We're all always growing, and we're all should be giving each other permission to grow and change. So we have to change with them. My spouse is always changing. You're not the same guy you were back when we were 20. Like our son's birthday is today. He just turned 25, and we just learned, gosh, we got together at his age. That was pretty cool. But the kids we were at 25 is not who we are today in all the really good ways,
Right.
you know? But our kids, my son is not the same guy he was even just last year. He has grown. So how do I grow with him? Well, what I mean by pursuing is you got to put on that student cap, and you always got to be discovering and rediscovering. What do they like? What are you learning? Tell me. Like we do this really well, and we pick up on how to do this when we're dating. We get fascinated by the person that we're drawn to. Why do we lose that fascination as we get older? Then we just start assuming we know somebody.
Right.
Well, I don't think it's any different with our kids. I love to do the one-on-one dates with each one of the kids, and when you get to go out, oh my gosh, they're around to do a dinner. They're around to just kind of hang out and maybe watch a game, and they're around to just sit and talk. I've been talking to my oldest son for hours, and I get on the phone with my oldest who's in Tennessee for hours sometimes, right? As an hour goes by, we just called for one thing, and it's like we get lost in the new things they're learning and what they're teaching their kids and what they're finding out about themselves and what they now like. And then I just get curious, like I just met a new person because this is the new evolved, you know, and the needs as a spouse to a spouse. What worked back then, it might be even the same needs, but like it looks a little different now. So then we have to grow with each other and give each other permission to grow. I think that's the greatest thing, right? Is to be comfortable enough in your skin to always be growing yourself so that you're confident enough in yourself that you could give the freedom to somebody else to be like, there's no putting you in a box. Like you grow up. Let me give you permission to do the same.
Yeah.
I always say a dangerous woman is a woman who knows who God is and know who she is. Like what's my identity? Because if I get it from you, it could be changing all day long. It's like, if you're
Yeah.
happy with me, then I'm happy. If you're not happy with me, then, what am I doing? And I get insecure. But the more I got grounded in who I was in God and who he said I was, and I could own my own skin, whether you're good or bad, I know who I am. But it's the same with our kids. It's like we get less intimidated by where other people are, and then we could give them permission to just grow and change because we're not wrapped up in it,
Yeah.
invest in them. Yeah. But my identity is not wrapped up in how good or bad somebody else does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope
That's
that
awesome.
helps. Yeah. Anyway.
There you go.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Good episode, I think.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know. I have to see what Mike thinks.
Yeah.
And
I
maybe
hope
here's
that
the
helps,
question.
Mike. If not, let us know.
What's that?
I said, I hope that helps, Mike. If not, let us know.
um yeah, well, and after this episode, Mike can be a dangerous woman just by knowing God and knowing himself, right? So that's what
Hon, really,
what I heard you,
did you just, yeah, you had to get one more in.
that's what I heard you say. I
Okay.
was paying
Well,
attention.
no,
No,
I think you're off on your own.
yeah,
That's okay. I'll be here when you come back.
okay.
Mhm.
No, actually, we appreciate this suggestion. Hopefully, we covered it for you. But here's a request. I mean, an offer or an ask for everybody out there. If there's a topic that you want us to, weigh in on, give you our perspective, what's worked for us, what hasn't worked for us, then just get in touch with us. Let us know.
Yeah.
You can reach both of us at, you can reach Dana at the yesdearpodcast.com or Patrick at the yesdearpodcast.com via our website. Well, please drop us a review.
Yeah.
Follow the show as well. Let us know, because
What you think.
sometimes you don't know who's out there. So if you
Sure.
found this encouraging, let us know that. That'd be
For
good.
sure. Yeah. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Yeah. See you next time.